We begin with a question for you, Coach, about what the preparation has been like in the past few days, and how do you plan to face a Kansas City team on Sunday?
Well, we're in the midst of a tough run of games here. We knew that from the very outset, but I have to be perfectly honest. The guys have, I think, shown and given a tremendous amount already. If we look back on the New England and the Minnesota games, two very different displays, but I think it portrayed the type of spirit and character that this group has, combined with some real nice quality, especially in the first half against Minnesota. The guys are in a good place mentally. I think if we look at where we're at in this run and how many games we're having to try and contend with, mentally they're in a really good place. It looked very bright and very buoyant today. And, we'll certainly go to Kansas with a positive attitude and a team that will look to win the game. We're in a very decent run, all things considered. And whilst Kansas have got plenty of qualities and tools to themselves cause us a problem, it's definitely an opportunity for us to put more points on the board.
Thank you, Coach. Mike, you were the assistant technical director with Kansas City, with the Sporting Kansas City from 2015 to 2017 before joining Nashville. With that, you helped the team get to win the Lamar Hunt US Open Cup. The team makes the playoffs every single year. Tell us a little bit about your story there in Kansas City, how that prepared you for your role now, and then where you see our team facing Kansas City on Sunday, and the challenges or the opportunities that you see for our team getting into that stadium.
Sure. I'm obviously very excited about the opportunity to come back to Kansas City and play there with our own team that we've built and worked with here. It's very special and fond memories about being there. The reality is, I don't play or coach, so, I think what's important to me, it's a sidebar on the game. I think my role and what will happen on Sunday, I think looking back on the experience I had in Kansas City, one of my chief responsibilities was kind of managing the three properties we used to talk about, our first team, our B team, and then the academy. And, I had a front row seat to see some really good teams play. The first team is, as you mentioned, obviously had great success in winning US Open Cups in 15 and 17. We started a B team with the Swope Park Rangers, and you probably have to fact check, but it's one of, if not the only team that's ever gone to USL Cup in each of their first 2 years. And certainly very proud of the opportunity now, the success that group had, but a number of players have moved from that team into the first team. And, along the same lines as that, also with the academy, we had the opportunity to see, 4 different guys that we signed there, as well as 2 others since then who moved on, from the academy into the first team. A couple of those guys through the B team, but it's really encouraging to have watched those kids grow up and now get a chance to see them play in the first team and see them this weekend. And, my last day with the club in 2017 was the US Open Cup final against New York Red Bulls. It was humbling. I think both the goals that our team had scored, both were by young kids that we kind of brought along in Daniel Shallowy and in Latif Blessing. Ironically, that Red Bulls team also in that final had Alex Mule playing that team. So it's nice after getting smacked by Alex in the USL Cup final in 2016 and then having to play him in the 17. It's nice to have in our group now. And, I think it's a special opportunity to go back and see, friends and people like their family. But I'm also really, really proud of the fact of taking this group that Gary's coaching now and taking them into Kansas City to test them against one of the best teams in MLS.
Thank you, Mike. We will now open the floor for questions, and we will begin with Tim Sullivan from For Club and Country with a question for you, Coach.
Gary, obviously what Peter Vermes has done over the years is no mystery. How does having a guy like Alan Pulido, which I think you could say is somebody that they've never had up top before, how does he change what they're able to do within their structure?
Well, first and foremost, Pete's done an incredible job there. I was I think I was still in the league when Peter first took over, and it's been as Mike's already attested to, a process there of not only building teams that do well, compete regularly, but consistently do it. And I think that's the key. You can often put a team together that's going to compete in any given season, but to be able to do that year after year, I think is testimony to not just the quality of the coach there, but the organisation that he's put together in that group. As far as the forward goes, I mean, look, the guy's a very, very talented centre forward, and I believe he's away on international duty, which will be, a real help for us, of course, because he's extremely capable. What I will say is that if you have somebody that leads the line in the way that he does, it gives plenty of the other players, in fact, a lot of the supporting stuff in that group, supporting players, probably a better way of putting it. It gives them an opportunity, a bigger opportunity to shine. And I think what you see is when Pulido's playing, he brings more out of the guys around him. And certainly his goals create a very different dynamic to any game.
We will go on with a question for you, Mike, from Tom Boger with MLSsoccer.com.
Hey, Mike, nice to talk to you again.
Hey, Tom.
So just looking forward now to playing SKC, and obviously it's a bit of a, watershed moment for you personally, given your history there. And with this team now, we talked about it, I guess, at different stages along the roster building process. But now that you guys are X amount of months into your first season, what has kind of some of those principles that you took from Kansas City and helped instill here? What are some of those that have manifested themselves?
I think when you look at the teams that they've had a lot of success with, they've always had a great blend of like the piano players, like they're creative players, they're artists, and they're piano carriers. And I think, when you look at the team in 13 that won MLS Cup, and, it's easy to point to guys like CJ Sapong or, Kai Kamara for left, Dom Dwyer, Graham Zuzi. You had guys like Paul Nagamura who helped kind of hold things together, and I think do a lot of the dirty work sometimes that always turn up in a stat sheet. And for us, I think Gary also has got a really good balance of the creative artists, those piano players, and the piano carriers. And I think for us, trying to create a mentality that we were going to be hard to play against was really important. And when you look at the likes of guys like you mentioned Alex Mule, Dax McCarty, Anibal Godoy, you have like this gritty, grinded out type group that I think takes a lot of pride in making the opposing team uncomfortable. And I think that's always been kind of a hallmark of like the sporting teams, I think, on both sides of the ball, trying to make teams uncomfortable.
We'll go on with a question from Dre Hills with the Tennessean for you, Coach.
Gary, what appears to be the final back-to-back on the road for you guys, at least in the regular season, obviously remembering that Hani was rested and rotated on Tuesday. With the schedule finalized now, with the final Dallas game included at last, will we see that rotation probably sprinkled throughout the midfield for the rest of October now that you can be able to know exactly when you guys are going to play against who and be able to make sure that bodies are still fresh and ready to go?
Well, we've all tried to do as good a job as we can, Drake, and that's not just myself, but you look at the medical department and sports science department. I think everyone's done a fabulous job of trying to offer the best possible recovery for the players, and of course preparations for the next game. And it's not been easy. I'm sure all clubs are dealing with the same issues. We have found ourselves in the midst of some injuries. Fortunately, the core of the group and a lot of the players are still in, good shape. They've been able to compete, and not just compete, they've put in some fabulous displays. My hope as we move along this, what would be classed as, the leading stretch, if you like, is probably twofold. The first one is to continue to add points to the board and do our very utmost to be in that postseason. But secondly, slowly but surely to make sure we're all clear on maybe what the best group is, what the most balanced group is. And then when push comes to shove at the right time, maybe in that postseason period, that we can put that group together without too many problems. And when I say problems, I mean injuries. So it's a fine line. If you make too many changes, then you can see a lack of continuity in the group. But I'd certainly like to think that everyone's been able to see a really good picture of the depth of our group, and certainly for some of the younger players and the less experienced players, I think we've found out an awful lot. And there's been 3 or 4 of the guys that I know both myself and Mike are absolutely delighted with. So it's been a challenging time, but I think it's been very fruitful as well.
A follow-up question from Tim Sullivan for you, Mike.
Mike, I know that you obviously have a very close relationship with Peter. Have you had the chance to maybe text him back and forth a little bit this week and talk a little smack before your teams play each other?
We do talk and text pretty regularly. I have to tell you, as strange as it might seem, we actually do not talk an awful lot about the game or about each other's teams in relation to preparing for each other. So it's it's been very cordial. I think up until kickoff, I think it's like a sibling rivalry a little bit. Obviously we're very close, but I think at the end of the day, I think his focus is on more about preparing for our opponent than it is talking trash at me.
Ben Wright with Broadway Sports with a question for you, Gary.
Yeah, Gary, earlier you had mentioned hoping to potentially get Yonder Cadiz into training and potentially ready to go as soon as he can. What's his status?
Yeah, Yonder's been part of the group. He looks in a good place. Very pleased to have him around the group. He's been, I think, a lift and an inspiration for the other guys to see on the ground and working. He's available for us. That's all I'll say at this point. He's available for selection at the weekend.